Anecdotes for success. Level up with truth, meaning, trade-offs, perspective.
All right, tonight, Matt and I, we're just going to kind of shoot the breeze for the next 30 minutes. We've had some great guests on. We've been bouncing some ideas about the direction we want the podcast to go. So, Matt, let's start first with the four pillars. I mean, that's the whole meaning of this podcast, right? What do you think so far about all the guests? What comes to mind? Any special thoughts? Any special moments? By the way, this is officially episode 35. So as far as podcast goes, we're still in diapers. And what we found out is most podcasts never get out of diapers, but actually we're in pull-ups right now. We're out of the diapers, but most of them never get out of the diapers. We're in pull-ups.
So, yeah, it's like I'm reading a book right now called The Great Escape. It's a good book, and one of the things that it was talking about in one of these chapters I'm reading is how back before the Industrial Revolution and before more modern medicine, the number of people who the mortality rate for children, and it reminded me of the podcast world. It's like a lot starting. Jeremy last podcast was, educated us on that. So that was cool. I mean, it feels like we are in diapers still with it, but at the same time, it's crazy to hear that we're plugging along further than a lot. But it's kind of how we do things, right? I mean, we're just kind of pluggers and just keep going and one foot in front of the other. And that's, kind of a philosophy that I know I have that's worked for me over the years. I'm never the smartest in the room, but I'm willing to just keep going. So I know there's a lot to that,
I know we discuss this behind the scenes all the time. We're in this for the long run. I mean, I don't want to say it's getting easier to get guests, but the guests are compounding. Like, we have people reach out to us now. We know what we're looking for. And at the end of the day, there's an endless amount of success stories. And what I love about all the success stories when we have guests on is none of them are linear. It just didn't say, oh, hey, I'm successful. A lot of ups and downs. And I think so far, I mean, when we look at some of the stats for the show, the listening's compounding, everything's compounding. So I know at the end of the day, we feel happy that we're helping people out, even if we don't know who some of them are right now, right?
Yeah, let's face it, our goals in this are probably a little different than a lot of people. A lot of people are like, I'm gonna get my Spotify contract and ride off to the sunset, and as much as we'd like that, the idea was never money or financial for us. It's always been about helping people and having interesting conversations, right? Which we're definitely doing. And as far as the guests go, I mean, kudos to you, Paul. Honestly, you kind of started a network out there that has just kind of built. You said that we're getting exponentially more guests and people reaching out to us, and that's awesome. And the kind of guests outside of our normal network, if you will, that we're people we didn't know before and kind of coming in. That's super cool because it's so great to get pillar 4 perspective from other people and their stories. And it is funny, it's not linear. Success isn't linear. And I can't tell you who I was talking to last week because I have so many conversations, but
with yourself or with other people?
The good ones are with other people. The ones at night myself when I'm shaking, I don't count those, at least in public. But we were talking about success. Oh, I know who. It was a friend of mine, actually, and we were texting. And I said to him, success, too many people just view it as a moment, oh, you won the Super Bowl or whatever, what you got the big contract or you got the job or whatever it was. It's never that moment. That moment, I think that moment's overrated personally. I think it's severely overrated. It's all the other stuff that went up to it. And my wife will criticize me often about this, and in a good-natured way, of course. It's like, you never celebrate. And I know it's not because I have this affinity for not celebrating or I'm afraid to celebrate. Nobody likes a party a good party, like me, I love a good party. I just never feel like it because the celebrations just in that process for me. And it's just my dad who, I think, I miss dearly, and we've talked about before, and he would always just say, keep plugging, keep plugging, keep plugging. And I do. And I feel like that's what we're doing. And when you do that, it's amazing the opportunities you get.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I remember the first time a couple years ago you started talking about the four pillars in class, because you do it every year with my students, our students. I mean, they're mine. I'm responsible for them, but I feel like they're yours in a way. They text you and ask you questions all the time. I wrote them down. I'm like, man, these are good. And then we were going to write something, a book or something about it. And then we decided to do the podcast. And I don't want to say I've stole them, but they've literally become embedded as part of my life too. And everything I've done, I use them all the time, and the kids use them all the time. We talk about them, and they're really solid. And what I like about truth, meaning, trade-offs, and perspective is you don't have to think about them in equal percentages, right? Like, sometimes the meaning might be taking up 50% of your time, or the trade, if you're going to school or working at night and not going out on weekends with your friends when you're younger, well, that's the trade-off that's taking up most of your time. And so they definitely mean more at certain stages of your life, or just certain days or weeks of your life, right? I rambled a little bit there, but the point is, I'm excited. These pillars, like every story we've had, and we've got some plans in the future, everything can revolve around these pillars.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And you're right. It's never equal. It's never all 25% across the board or whatever. It depends on where you are in your life, what you're talking about, what the conversation is. But they fall into everything when it comes to good decision making. And you kind of hit on it. We're talking about doing some things, and trying to help people in more of a private way, and get involved with people to help them make better decisions, whether it's in their business, whether it's in their financial, the investment area, which you have a tremendous amount of expertise in, or just their personal lives and that kind of thing. And I said, a minute or so ago, we didn't get into this to make money. We got it to help people. And we've been talking, we feel like we can do that. We're positioned to do that with people. And we want to open that door up to people, right? I mean, we're gonna, but a big part of that's going to be these four pillars. And it's because they're there in our real lives. And your students, and I'd love to think of them as mine as well, because I like the relationships and I like how eager they are, and I like to think at that point in my life to have the kind of knowledge and intelligence and commitment that so many of them have. It's impressive. But I'd love to talk to more people about those pillars, and not that they're, I was going to say foolproof, but I mean, we find them in everything. And it's not like we made up truth or meaning or trade-offs or perspective. Those aren't our words. We just happen to see that if you look at those four areas and apply them to your life, you're going to make better decisions. And by making better decisions, you're going to have a better life. And maybe that's making a lot more money, or maybe it's got nothing to do with money. You know what I mean? That's fine. Maybe it's just how you interact with your family or your coworkers or your spouse, or whatever it happens to be. And that would be the goal and the intent. And I came up with them, Paul, but I came up with them because I was thinking of, when I was heading to one of your classes to talk to them. I knew I was going to talk to them, and I was thinking, what do I stand for? Like, where's my values? I mean, I think I knew what I stood for, but I never put it into words. Who does? Most people don't. But most people don't have to stand in front of people and talk about something that they claim to believe in, and I do believe in. But I was like, I gotta kind of wrap this up into what I stand for and what I think works, essentially. And that's how I came up with them. And I've been trying to do that in my life and other things. I get asked all the time, especially from your students or people their age, is I get this question. If you were my age, what advice would you give, or what would you give someone, advice would you give someone my age? And you know what? I've fumbled with that question for years, Paul, with your students and other people like them, age-wise. And I just started putting that list together the last couple weeks, and I ran a few of them by my wife, and I got the yep, that makes sense, but I'm not there yet. But same idea. I'm trying to go, okay, what do I, what am I supposed to say? Find a job and work hard? Like, no, that's not it. I need more. I need to answer a question that's posed to me often in a much more serious manner than I have, or more well thought out. As I've always taken it seriously, but I never thought it out as well as I needed to. So I'm thinking that out too, and I'll talk to you about that offline before I embarrass myself with it online. But yeah, it all comes to the same idea. I attempt to help people, but seeing it through the lens of these 4 pillars really clarifies it for me, and I think a lot of other people.
It's amazing. I think you could make so many strides in life just by almost waking up every day and reflecting on the 4 pillars in a journal. Like, what truth are you working on, or what's a solid, steadfast truth in your life that's non-negotiable? It could work both ways.
True.
What are you going to do that's meaningful today? Or you just repeat what your overall meaning is. You get where you could make them short-term or long-term. And same with trade-offs, because there's choices every day, and especially perspective. The older you get, and I mean, we're on the other side of a pandemic now, and perspective wise for me, I mean, the biggest pivots in my life happened with COVID. And on the other side of this, I'm like the best place I've ever been in my life as far as businesses and my job and relationships. And it's just funny how I think back about that all the time, that if COVID never happened, I'd still be doing a lot of things the same way. And I'm not downplaying the sickness and the tragedies and the people that lost jobs, but you can take any situation and put it in perspective. When we could get into all that, but you almost could journal these 4 pillars each day, and at the end of the day, if it's that important to you, you'll make major strides in your life. I don't always like to use the word changes. I don't always like to use the word growth or success, because like we were saying before we hit record, it's not linear. There's going to be some steps backwards before forwards, right? But if you live by these 4 pillars every day, you will change, and I'm 99.99% sure it's going to be for the better.
Yeah. No,
it's like an investment. I can't guarantee it, but you know what I'm saying.
long term, you're going to be better. You might have a year like we're having to start right now in the investment world, I guess. But you're going to be better over that 20 or 30-year cycle, right?
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, if you're working a job and going back to school at night, that's a pretty big trade-off. So I can't tell you in a month or 2 or a year you're going to be better off, right? But in 4 years and 10 years and a decade, you will be. So it depends. And I think these pillars help with the process. If you don't have a process in place, then at some point, I think you always are trying to measure what your growth is. And I don't think successful people measure their growth. I think they have, you could speak more on this, they have checkpoints or goals, or what's the word I'm looking for? Benchmarks.
Okay, sure.
Right. And if you're following these 4 pillars and you're working to your best ability with them, you will hit your benchmarks.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I kind of subscribe to that, and I know other people who've been much more successful than I, and people who maybe have, and or to some degree similar, do some different things when it comes to that. I'm a goal setter. I'm a this is what I want to accomplish, and I'm pretty good at aligning it to a time frame. And that gets me going. You know what it is, Paul? Know what so much of it is for me? It sounds so hokey. I hate even saying it because it sounds so goofy. but it's true, and I can't tell you how true it is. But as soon as I convince myself up here that I'm gonna do it, I do it. And I'm not special. The point is anyone can do that. The trick is actually convincing yourself, and the more you do it and then succeed in it, the easier it becomes to convince yourself, right?
Well, so when you set those goals, I know they're pretty grand goals, and I have no doubt in my mind you don't hit them, but you always hit them when you say you're going to hit them.
I've pretty much hit them early.
Okay.
I've pretty much hit the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. I've hit early, and it's not because I'm trying to set myself up for this. Well, I'll put it out here further, so if so when I hit it early, I can impress myself, or I try to be realistic. I'm not one to generally tell other people what it is. Maybe my wife, of course, my daughter, who I'm super close with, my brothers, who I'm very close with. I'll get into it with them a little bit sometimes, not always, but certainly maybe my wife and my daughter. But I said it. I think I'm realistic, and I'm trying to be realistic, and I also I want to push myself a bit, but I can't think of any exception other than trying to get a date with my wife, which took me about 2 years longer than my goal. The business goals I've always succeeded at much quicker, and but I think again the point that really I want to make sure people understand is it's because I actually believe that I'm going to do it. And in the first time I said, hey, I got to believe in myself, it was hard, because I didn't have any history of it. But I convinced myself, and then I succeeded. And then I did it again and again. And now I really believe I can accomplish anything I set my mind to. And it becomes a lot easier to convince myself. But tell that to someone who's had a lot of failures, or just kind of living the regular, 9 to 5, hasn't been a goal setter, maybe hasn't had anything they consider to be great accomplishments in their lives yet. Tell them that the way to achieve their goals is to make sure they really convince themselves first. That's hard. It's not easy to do that, but I believe it with all my heart. When you are able to do that, you will not fail. And but to do that, Paul, you got to be realistic. It's like me saying, I'm going to be the president of the United States, and I'm going to do it in the next, for the next election. Like that I could never convince myself I could do that. I know it's ridiculous. So
what do you say, like, from high school students, seniors? Let's face it, they could have a lot of goals, but I guess that's where I go back to the benchmarks. They have to graduate first, right?
Yeah.
And then what I try to do when they start telling me they want to be a business owner, or they want to start a online store, or they want to have a side hustle, like society likes to say, then they're like, but I'm going to go to college for 4 years first. I challenge them with why. Like, how's that going to reach your goal? Well, then they start sounding like their parents. They're like, because that's their answer. I'm supposed to. And my mom and dad say I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
But I feel like we are in a society today, and I have some pretty motivated and gifted students, where they still feel that you can't, like, a goal is actually finishing college. I don't think that's a goal. Like, I mean, can't you do it while you're running a business still? Can't you go to school at night? Can't you go online? Can't you go to community college first? Don't take 4 years. And I didn't do it that way. I don't think you did it that way. It was different 30 years ago, 20 years ago. But in today's world, I don't feel like education should be a goal. I feel like education is a means to the goals you want to accomplish. So that's what I'm fighting, because it's easy. I don't want to say it's easy. I didn't mean that word, but you have your goals and you reach them. But I'm always dealing with people that feel like they can't, their goal is the education, which isn't the goal. Like, it's just the process.
Yeah.
What do you say to those people?
you're right. I see what you're saying. And there's a lot of different things there that hit me as you're talking about it, because I agree. Number one, you can do more than just get the education at a time. You can do a lot of other things. Take it from me. I could tell you the stories of all the things I had going at once. And I look back at it sometimes and go, how the heck did I do all that at once? So I know it can be done. I'm not impressed with I'm going to college, but I did that too, just like you did, Paul, at our age. And maybe it was different then, but I think where it starts, and this comes back to the thing I was talking about earlier, where I'm like, when people say, what advice would you give, or what would you do? This comes back to that a little bit, because what I mean by that is, when you say you want to start a business or start a side hustle or get your college education, what I really want to know is this: why? What's the real goal? Not I want to go to college, or I want to get a diploma. Like, I don't think that's the real goal. I want to have my own business. Do you? Is that what you really want? Or because I don't think it is. It's something different than that. I want to be a millionaire, and I think having a business is my best opportunity. Okay, why do you want to be a millionaire? I mean, it goes so much deeper, and that comes in. We start to get into perspective, and you start to get into truth on those things. But you got to think deeper, and those are the kind of questions that, again, well, I'm going to college. Why? Well, the answer is probably because I've been told my whole life I'm going to college. And that's just like I told my daughter, I'm guilty, just so you know, like, hey, you should go to college. You should go to college. I didn't have the conversation with her, like, what's your why? What do you want to do? And Craig Southern, remember, talked about the why a lot, speaking of previous guests of ours, and he was dead on when it comes to that. And I think he got me thinking on these terms a little bit more. So thanks, Craig. But I think that's the real question is, why do you want that side hustle? Why do you want that other business? I get into it all the time. When I think about it all the time, I want my freedom. That's what I want. That's what I've wanted for years. That's what all this has been about for me. Whatever this is, that is my life right now. It's about finding my freedom. And that only comes through certain certain financial achievements, if you will, in order to have the kind of freedom I ultimately want and enjoy in certain degrees right now, which we were talking about a little bit offline as well. I don't always have it. Sometimes I'm working 15-hour days like I did today and like I did yesterday. And a little bit of stretch of the last couple of months, other than my, trip to Europe, it's been a lot of work. So, it's not always there. So but it's all the same why. I always have to say, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? It always comes back to freedom. Most people don't dive that deep, I don't think. And if you want to figure out what your life's going to be about and what you're going to commit it to, what your meaning's going to be, the why is there. So
two things, regardless of anybody's situation in life, if you do just a little bit more than the average person, it compounds again. I mean, exponentially, you're going to have so much more than the average person. And I want to get to two examples. So there's 168 hours in the week. So if you go to college and take 15 credit hours, that literally means you're in class for 15 hours a week. That's 9% of your work week. Now, we know all college students sleep 8 hours a day, right? So that's 33%. So my point is, between sleep and class, you still have almost 60% of your work week left over. And I know you got to eat, and I know you got to study. So if you take a percentage of that 60% left and have your online business, or you're reading some books, or you have that part-time job and invest that money even while you're in school, you're going to be ahead of everybody else. And then as far as the freedom situation, I know we talk about it a lot, because I joke that I'm freer than you because I don't work half a year as a teacher. And obviously we know the flaw in that reasoning. I just like to get the kids going,
Right.
But a lot of teachers complain about what they don't have. And I look at it perspective wise, I have half a year where I can do just a little bit more as far as creating value to people. And then they wonder why I'm in the situation I'm in 5 years before I'm supposed to retire.
Yeah,
Like, so,
exactly.
so whether it's college with your timing, whether it's a little side hustle or, and I know a lot of educators that do summer jobs and make a lot of extra money and do things with it, but I feel like so many of them don't. And then same with employees you have, if they'd work a little extra overtime or take that extra class or invest money instead of blow it, right?
Yeah,
So
Paul, and I think something that you're nailing a great point, and I think something's important to say with that extra time. I read a study, and it was a year or so ago, so I don't remember. But if you work at 40 hours a week, I think it what it was. If you work an extra 10 hours, so you're putting in 50 hours a week, the return payoff on average is like 40% of what you were earning. So let's say you work 40 hours a week and you make 80 grand a year, okay? What this was saying, if you work an extra 10% or 10 hours a week, so now you're working 50 hours a week, you're going to make another 40% on that 80 grand, which is another 32,000. So you go from working 40 for 80, you work 50 for 132. And now the point is the payoff you get from those 10 extra hours is enormous. And that's exactly what you're saying. Now it's not enormous if you're getting paid by the hour and you're just saying, okay, I make $30 an hour. Now I'm going to make, an extra 40% per hour. It's not a law by the state of New York or the state of Montana or whatever it is. It is a statistic based on if people who work 10 extra hours a week, what their income is over what they would have made if they worked 40. And again, I wish I had more details on it. And I'm sure there's some holes that could be poked through it. The point is, if you're going to work the same as everybody else, and I know people now, their jobs don't even require 40 hours a week. They require 35 hours a week. And I look at that and I go, my God, you're going the wrong way. I mean, I'm not saying everyone has to work more hours. Leisure time and your time with your family, that's got a lot of value. Don't get me wrong. But what you can get and gain from that extra time is exponentially more than what you get with the normal 40-hour work week. And we both have a I want to tell a quick story. We both know Sean Marks, right? We both know Sean. And Sean and I were talking.
I was just talking to him last Thursday. So
okay, Sean and I were trying to get a deal done a couple of years ago. Now we weren't able to get done. He's a deal guy. I'm a deal guy. We're match made in heaven. He's a great guy. I love him. I got tremendous respect for him. But we're sitting down having lunch, and I said to him, because he's done a lot, as you well know, and he's our age, similar in our age. And I was like, Sean, you've accomplished a lot, and you're young, at least in my opinion. What do you attribute that to? Because I love that question. I'd like to know why people succeed quicker, more profoundly, whatever it is, than others. And he's a business guy, as you well know. And he said, Matt, let me ask you a question. How many hours a week do you think you worked the last, 25 years on average? And I said, God, probably 60. That's been my average. I think that's a fair number for me. And by that, when I'm home, I'm doing work, my mind's on it all the time. It doesn't mean I'm there, shoveling or digging or whatever the analogy you want to use is every day, teaching or whatever, every moment at 60 hours. It means I'm engaged in some way, though. And he said, me too. I think that's probably the right number for me. And he goes, so let's say you're 40 and you've been working 20 years and you've been working 50% more than most people, right? If you work 60 hours a week and most people work 40, you're working 50% more than they are. He said, you're 50% older than they are in work terms. He goes, well, so what do if someone's old, 10 years, in this case, it'd be, let's say from 40 to, they started at 20, they're 40, they'd be like they're 10 years older. They have 10 more years experience. Wouldn't you expect them to be further along? Wouldn't you expect them to be better in some ways? I would. I mean, I think someone who's worked 30 years has more experience and probably has done more than someone who's worked 20 years. He said, basically, we've worked 10, 12, 13 more years than everyone else our age. Of course, we're farther along. They made we all made our trade-offs. We gave up our vacations and our free time and whatever it was. We traded that trade-offs, which we always talk about. We traded some of those experiences and memories, which are wonderful, for more time in the workplace to hopefully succeed more and whatever that success meant to us, more income producing assets or whatever they happen to be. For us, that's what it is. So his story was basically, Matt, you've worked 50% more than everybody else. So have I. Why wouldn't you be at least in this case, at least 50% more? And I never thought about it like that, but it really hit home for me.
It's perfect. I mean, if you start doing something before everybody else and then you do more of it, it should compound to greater results.
Does it in the sports world?
If you invest when you're 18 to 22 instead of waiting till 28, there's a study that you can almost stop when you're 28 or start when you're 28, and you'll have more between 18 and 28 because it's compounding now. It's the same with your work hours.
Right.
And we could sit down with anybody that's complaining about life, and I have that mindset chart where you either solve problems or cause problems, or you either take action or you don't take action. So, and then on the chart, that means you're either toxic, you're a whiner, you're a dreamer, or you're a champion. I have that hanging up in my classroom. I have it as a business card I give to my students. I'll explain it to you. So if you set somebody in that category, and then you sit down and you ask them about truth, meaning, trade-offs, and perspective, as soon as they start sounding like Fred Flintstone and are like, yeah, but, yabba dabba do. They're having their excuses, and all it means is they're selling out to different noises and distractions that are getting in the way of their goals. And that's fine. No one's telling you can't do that, but don't complain about it.
Exactly. Right.
And that's where the 4 pillars come in. I feel like if you're committed to, it's like a diet plan or a workout plan. You can say you're doing it and lie to yourself and you're not going to get the results. But if you hold yourself accountable, when kids complain in my class, I'm like, just try. And it's an acronym for take responsibility for yourself. And when people are complaining, it means they're not trying. And if you take accountability with these 4 pillars, you're going to find where the shortcoming is in your life. If you're complaining, if you don't think there's a shortcoming, then God bless. I don't care either. It's your life, not my life. But don't complain to me. I have no patience for that anymore.
Paul, I'm writing something down because this is really interesting. So 20 minutes ago or whatever, we started, it came up. And as you know, we're just riffing here tonight. We're just chatting. We didn't have any agenda about, why I talked about kids ask me, what would I do if I was 18, or what would advice I give an 18-year-old, right? And I've said things like invest in real estate, buy a duplex. I've talked about some strategies, and I'm not comfortable with that anymore as an answer, not because I don't believe in them, because I don't think it's deep enough. So I told you I talked to my wife and I'm trying to give up some things, but I wasn't ready to say what they were, okay? There were 4 of them, and I'm not even done thinking. So it's not a number that I like 4 pillars and 4 advice, pieces of advice for 18-year-olds or whatever. It was just 4 of them that I've come up with the last few weeks. In this conversation, all 4 have come up, and I've written them right down. I'm going to tell you what they are. It's funny because they've come up, and they haven't come up because I brought them up. They came up because you brought them up.
It's funny.
Yes. Well, or they came up in our conversation naturally, I guess is a better way. Be accountable. No excuses. I don't want your excuses. You are in charge of your life. Be accountable. You do that. That's 1. Know why. Know the why, right? The Craig Sutherland thing. Why are you doing it? Don't give me the I want to get a degree. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a business person. I want to be a millionaire. That's not the why. The why goes deeper, right? We talked on that. So that was the second one I came. I'm kind of tooling around. The third one, put in more work than others. Work harder. And again, we talk about it as a business or as a job, but you could be a musician, you could be a painter. What about your daughters, your athletes? Did the athletes who put in 20 hours a week fare better than the ones who put in 12 or 10 or 5? I would imagine so, but or more importantly, does the athlete who puts in 10 fare better than the same athlete who puts in 20? I would argue that the same athlete, the more time they put in until you get diminishing returns,
Right.
is going to do better. Okay. So work more. That's whatever it is, work more at it. Maybe you want to be the best teacher in the world. Great. Work more at it. And then the fourth one is be a problem solver. Don't be a complainer. Don't be a problem creator, like you just said. So I just think I had no intention of bringing these up because I hadn't thought them through all the way. But the fact that they just came up in this conversation and you clinched it when you said you're either problem solvers or problem creators. I'm like, now I got to talk about it.
Oh, it's true. My grandfather always used to say, where there's people, there's problems. And some people solve them, some people create them. And then there's another aspect of that where some people see the problem and don't take any action. And some people see the problem and they take action, whether it's for good or bad. And it's just crazy. So yeah, I mean, that's what we're getting into. I mean, 35 episodes in, we've had a lot of great guests. We're not nearly to the point yet where we're going to have a repeat guest on because it hasn't been long enough, right? But
Right.
we've kept in contact with a lot of them behind the scenes, and they're willing to come back, and they're making tons of changes too. So it's incredible. And yeah, we're going to have a few more riffs like this. And you and I have talked. We got some big things coming probably this summer, late fall. So until next episode when we're back to guests. I appreciated this, Matt. It was a good convo tonight.
Yeah, Paul, it was. Thanks. I had a busy day, as you would know, and you were able to help put this conversation off deeper into the night than we normally do. But I'm glad I always get so energized when we have these conversations, and now I won't be able to sleep. I'm going to have to go read so I can get drowsy, but I'm looking forward to guests, but you and I getting together, just riffing on things is always, really fun too.
Hey, I'm going to end the night on a dad joke. People think gas prices are high, right? You should see the cost of chimneys. They're through the roof.
Oh God, that's terrible.
Yeah, I wish I could make that one up, but I didn't even make that one up. I mean, all right, Matt. Hey, take care. We'll talk soon.
All right, Paul, see you.
Yeah, bye.